Ever witnessed someone so fast on track you doubt you could ever be on their level? The mission of Advanced Motorsports is to demonstrate the speed is achievable for everyone. With the expertise of some of the best sim drivers in North America, we are set to release free content on social media and comprehensive guides on our website. For those seeking the ultimate experience, our Advanced Motorsport Institute and personalized coaching sessions are the way to go. No matter your level of experience, we invite you to follow us on our social media to learn to be fast.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Ready to start another great race in the Precision Racing League. Green flag flies, we're underway. Side by side, door-to-door contact. Incredible action here in the PRL. And they come together. After all the fighting, it ends in tears.
Trip to Circuit of Spa-Francorchamps as the PRL and its GT3s look to do well tonight here in Belgium. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to RaceSpot's coverage of the Fixed and Sprint Series tonight as we begin with the Fixed side of the card here tonight. I'm Justin Prince alongside for tonight's coverage, Ewan O'Leary with Ramiro Augustin Cisneros as our producer for this evening's action. Tonight, we look to see how the drivers played things out after weeks of preparation from the endurance race over the past weekend on iRacing's platform. Today, Spa's the focus, Ewan, a track that many very likely now are familiar with for this week.
Yeah, they probably would have been familiar with it before this weekend, to be honest, but they certainly are now. The 24 hours of Spa will have been contested by many of the 41 drivers we've currently got in this session. Not entirely sure how many, but you can bet that there will be quite a few. And as I say, it's a circuit that people know a lot about anyway. It's used in most series, especially if you've been running the GT3 series for quite some time. You will have raced around here plenty, so no surprises for the drivers this evening.
And keep in mind, this is also your midway point tonight for both the Fixed and Sprint Series on the schedule as we close up with Nürburgring, Mugello, along with Imola and Road America later on in the campaign. It's going to be an interesting layer of races as a result as we continue to battle out for the championships. Speaking of which, let's take a look at how they've been doing so far, because the pro side, Jim Feliz has been electrifyingly quick. 214 points on the season coming into tonight. He's got 1 win so far, yes, but he's the only driver to finish in the top 5 every round this season. F. McKay currently second. Then you have Luke Wallace and Tyler Graff amongst the top 4. Of note, it was Wallace who picked up the win last time out at Brands Hatch. You also throw into the mix Kwok Nim, who missed the last round. He's already taken the drop as a result. That's going to be a major factor for later on for these standings for the pro side. The AM side, meanwhile, that's been a bit more of a toss-up so far. Pete Maja still leading the way in those standings, entering tonight by 13 points. Joey Costello and Buck Hamilton amongst the top 3. Jared DePloy started off strong. He took the drop last week. Sean Provo also picked up solid points last time to get within 28 points of your top spot in the AM standings. Also of note, some of the other droppers have showed speed, like Walter Walden throughout the year, having to make up from a DNF all the way back in the 3rd round of the season. Team meanwhile, SRT, they have been dominating to the point where they're 1 through 5 for the team standings. Crikey Esports behind them as the first non-SRT organization. SRT so far has won 3 of the 4 races overall. Michigan GT3 Racing also up there in the 200 bracket. Lunatic Racing just on the cusp of joining that club here this evening. Lots to talk about, but first things first, tonight's coverage brought to you by Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All peer members get a 5% discount on install products. Precision 5 coupon code. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxers are enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit RaceBoxSimRacing.com and get a 5% discount. Use the Precision 5 coupon code. Butt Kicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. For every nuance, enjoy put yourself in the driver's seat. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit Moradness.com. Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. And by Advanced Motorsports. Get ready to learn to be fast with Advanced Motorsports. Follow them on their socials to become a better driver. And speaking of drivers, 41 entries have made their way to Spa for this race, as touched upon by even earlier on. Tony Costello. He's now at the top of the board, though, and what has been a bit of a frantic session so far. We've seen drivers like Lehman lead. Feliz was as high as second moments ago. Right now, 2:18.6s are your top times, though.
Yeah, and what a great bounce back, by the way, for Tony Costello, who's not had the best season so far. He's only 25th in the standings. Last week had a crash at the halfway mark and had to tow back to pit lane. It's been tricky at times for him, really, having never scored a top 5. He's back here, though, 31 thousandths ahead of Josh Chinsky, who also is not necessarily those right at the top of the standings either. And so it's a bit of a surprising qualifying session, and there they both are, 1 and 2 on the screen, setting up for what realistically is going to be some of their final laps of the session.
Of note, by the way, with some of the drafts as well, maybe Waldo Walden and Joey Costello have both set times inside the top 10 by a margin significant in the AM standings of at least 6-8 positions. Those two going to make things interesting. They're within about a 10th on a second in their qualifying laps as well for the session.
Yeah, really important for Joey Costello, especially to manage that, as Luke Wallace, by the way, last week's winner, makes an improvement to 3rd place. Yeah, Costello only, 13 points behind Pete Major at the moment. He's with the positions he's got right now, would probably move very, very close indeed to getting there. Pete Major only 31st. He's not having a good qualifying session.
And running out of time to get a good time, though. Only about 2 minutes to work with. Jim Feliz, he's been on his own for much of this session. So not too much slipstream to come off of. It's going to be interesting how the race plays out, though, tonight, because we've seen draft be very important here in the past, but also track position being so critical. Your thoughts on what we expect to see for tonight for the racing?
I think it's going to be pretty open racing, really. I think what we saw at the early part of the Spa 24 Hours might be repeated here, to be honest. We saw a pack racing, effectively, especially at the very front of the field. Unless you're really quick and you've got a real advantage, it's difficult to get away. Judging by these times, it's going to be pretty difficult for someone to get away without something strange happening. So we could see a little bit of waiting around, quite a lot of fuel saving maybe in the first stint before it all comes to a head in this second part of the race after the pit stops, which will once again be crucial.
McKay currently in 7th, does have the drafting partner in Wallace. Here's a look at McKay. See him nice and calm, it seems, for the time being in his Porsche, compared to the Corvette surrounding him.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy traffic, actually, for a qualifying session, and it's not particularly ideal, but just got to deal with what you've got at this stage. Evan McKay will be helped, I should say, by the draft of the Corvette just up in front of him as he powers towards the line. He finished 3rd last week. Helped him along to 2nd place in the driver's standings, which he still holds behind Jim Felice. And he'll go into the final couple of corners now, hoping for a bit of an improvement. Maybe he can jump over his main championship rival, who's just 3 thousandths ahead of him at the moment.
McKay now set free, it looks like, by some of the maneuvers in the pack. Time 2:18.686. That puts him up to 4th. Caleb Lehman jumped himself up to 2nd again, by the way. It's checker flag on the racetrack. Now it seems to be pushed lap for a couple drivers, possibly. Chinsky, the lead driver, Luke Wallace, is trying to get a triple toe almost.
Well, he is going to, and that could possibly, an improvement for Wallace, could possibly give us 5 drivers within a 1/10 of a second. It's a remarkably close qualifying session, including one of the McLarens right up there, which is absolutely wonderful to see. In fact, 4 different manufacturers within that 1/2 a 10th that separates the top 4 at the moment.
Even with the googly eyes once again, still staying dialed in. He led the way in final practice, by the way. So he's got another 10th in it if he can somehow set that here, but top 3 is going to be a good spot for him in this session if it so holds for Lehman and his McLaren.
I think the McLaren will go well round here. Traditionally is very good at high speed, and there's plenty of high speed round here. The middle sector might not be where it can really flex its muscles, but in terms of making overtakes on the way up towards Le Combe after the Kemmel Straight, it's going to be good down there, and good down into the bus stop chicane as well after the long run out the Curve Pour Frères. So yeah, we could see some really good racing from this McLaren here today. One of the few McLarens, of course, but if ever there's a circuit on this schedule that you would pick out for it, it would be this one, maybe aside from Daytona, which we've already had.
Jim Felice, top of the board while on his own, and that shows the raw pace yet again for Felice, setting a 2:18.636 with no draft.
That's very impressive. It makes you wonder how much the draft is actually helping these guys. I guess we'll have that case study with Luke Wallace in a few moments' time, because Caleb Lehman is not really near the Porsche ahead of him, I'm afraid, even if I think they are trying to work together in some way. Lehman and McKay's just up in front, and there he goes wide as well. Lehman right in the way of Luke Wallace, who won't be pleased with this.
Bit off there for Lehman. Is that going to count here? Let's find out. 2:19 flat, no change. 2:18.9. Wallace did not improve either. And there are amongst some of your final drivers to cross the stripe here outside of Kwoknin, who is down in 17th after being a championship favorite before the drop week.
Yeah, it's not a good qualifying for some, but great for Jim Felice, who's taken a very late pole position.
Jim Felice will start on the pole tonight. Tony Costello will start alongside of the front row. Then Caleb Lehman along with Joshua Chinsky, your top 4. McKay and Wallace, the top 6. Jared Keane starts off in 7th. Waldo Walden, your top AM driver, all the way up in 8th position. We'll start just in front of Joey Costello. Costello got within about a 10th of him. Boyd Benson in the top 10 once more. Dale Peterson start in 11th. David Bush the 3rd in 12th. Brett Thurman and Felix Feliz, the top 14. Jay Steffi, Andrew Trinket in 16th. Quackton will start alongside the third highest AM driver in qualifying, Colin McKenzie. Then McKenzie will start in front of Sully Siad and Ross Sortino. Then Vincent General and Tyler Graff continuing to have a bit of a rough year for this season at least. 22nd. Bernardo and Christopher Rines back in 24th. Dan Elgin, the next page, along with Buck Hamilton, 2 AM drivers, Nick Bruno and Ian Cabana in the top 28. John Provo and Ryan Chandler in your top 30. David Moore starts 31st, Regan Chandler 32nd, Robert Jeffries and Mark Kalin makes the start tonight. Pete Maija start in 35th for your AM leader. That's going to be a very tough one for him now. He'll start alongside Stedvik, then Kevin Berquist, Brett Punkari, Sean Mulholland, along with Brent Barry Cochran, your last driver to set a time. In fact, all did today. Bryce Bombeck will start at the tail. So 41 drivers, all of them able to get a time in today. Track conditions fairly cool, so to speak, in terms at least the track conditions. Your keys to victory tonight.
Yeah, by the way, on track conditions, it could be quite dark by the end. 10 to 9 start time here at Spa. Yeah, I think early on you've got to make the front group, and I think some of that has already been done. Qualifying will be important. We always talk about it in the fact that it's not going to be difficult to overtake at Spa compared to some of the other circuits, even like Brands Hatch last week, to be honest. But it is key to make the front group, and I think anybody in the pros who's inside that top 7 will have no problems making it. If you're outside the top 2 in AM, to be honest, you'll be struggling to make it, because the performance of Waldo Walden and Joey Costello in that qualifying session was quite outstanding, and they're a long way ahead of those they need to be ahead of in this qualifying session. Other keys, I think just staying out of trouble and all that other usual stuff, making the overtakes when you need to make them and knowing when you need to make them is going to be the keys, as they are everywhere.
So let's find out how tonight plays out. PRL tonight. It's GT3 Fixed Series about to get itself started. Glad to have you with us here on Race Spot, where Jim Feliz once again be in command for the field here on this 81 degree Fahrenheit 78 air temp track today. By the way, for Feliz, this is pole number 2. That's the series high for this season. So it looks like we're all set to go with the safety car already peeling off. Feliz already in prime position with plenty of SRT playmates behind. But will it be him to take the checkered or anybody else in the pack? Let's find out as they come up to the start line. Making the slow roll to be able to start all the way down for the Endurance pit road for today. The Endurance layout for today on hand as they get ready to go down the hillside. Jim Feliz is on the gas. Already single followed out. We're underway. Jim Feliz with a perfect launch. Same for Cal Bleeman, able to get up to second. Everybody else going up the hillside.
Let's see who can get through here. I think it's going to be Lehman who's going to be in the lead very shortly. We know how quick that McLaren is in a straight line. And look at it rocking up to the back of the Porsche, which is not great in a straight line. Here goes Lehman to the lead, very possibly, on the opening lap.
Not yet, though. Feliz better in the corners, showing that raw pace. And now Brett Thurman able to shuffle up McKay and already shuffled to the 12th position off the initial start. Now, we see a lot of fuel save from Jim, but already hearing some drivers having some issues in the pack.
Yeah, I think that just lots of changes of position, actually. I don't think anybody actually going off. Pete Measure might have been off. The championship leader in AM has dropped to the very back. He only started 35th. He's been having an absolute disaster so far. But Pete Measure is all the way down at the back. He may just have been overtaken, to be honest, by people. But it's a complete nightmare start for the AM championship leader.
Perfect start, though, up at the front, though, with Wallace, Wachinski, all line astern for the time being. Able to keep things clean, it looks like. Amongst your top 10 for the start, at the very least. A lot of Corvettes, all trying to battle the Porsche, McLaren, and Audi. A lot of manufacturer spread, actually, amongst your top 7.
Yeah, it's great to see, isn't it? There's lots more Corvettes in the Sprint Series that we're going to see a little bit later on, but we're a little bit more spread out here. Porsche, McLaren, Audi, Corvette, the top four, with the first of the Ferraris coming in the form of Joey Costello in the background, 8th place for the first of the Ferraris in the field, but great variety to see and a very close pack at the end of the opening lap. That's what we expected, to be honest. It's going to be closer as Jim Felice gets it wrong into the final chicane.
Setting up the opportunity for the race lead yet again. Lehman wants to lead. Felice doesn't mind, it seems. Still keeps the preferred groove with an earlier break. Still is in the midst of battle. Interestingly enough, we've seen Jim allow whoever wants to lead early so he can save. It looks like he's going to the fuel save.
There he goes, he's now tucked in. I can't understand really why they're fighting so hard for the lead, because I think the leader, as you say, will not be able to fuel save quite in the same way, and that will make their life very, very difficult. But let's see, Luke Wallace very close to the back of Costello. Thought he was just going to push the Audi, but no, he is going for places down the inside at Lecombe, and he does make it through.
Wallace not afraid to push, able to get up to third with that move. So, top three different layers of car manufacturers and team spread early going. By the way, Walden and Joey Costello already up to 7th and 8th respectively. So, it's going to be an interesting one if you're in the heart of the pack, because drivers like Robert Jeffries took some hits. It was bumper cars coming out of the corners.
We said that it was a clean start into La Source because the race hadn't started yet, and into Lecombe, but it was not clean through No Name Corner. That was very messy indeed. And I can tell you, by the way, 3 drivers ended up on pit lane at the end of lap 1 as a result of that. Ryan Chandler, Vincent Généraux and Robert Jeffries, who we just saw there, all in pit lane after the opening lap.
And we've already had Généraux pull out of the race as a result. So, already 4 minutes or so off the clock here. Huge credit so far to what we've seen from some of the drivers that have needed good runs today. They've maintained the pack, such as Tony Cassell and Joshua Chinsky.
It's been a good job from the top, I would say, 13 who have made the front group for the moment. But there's some very big gaps within that group, and I think that could break apart very, very quickly. So you'd want to get yourself to the front. And Jim Felice very nearly got himself straight into the leader. Into the bus stop there. He's brought it up, but that's the second lap in a row he's made a mistake at the bus stop.
Why do you think that may be with him starting to pile on mistakes such as that? Although, starting to see a lot of check-up effect. Let's see who made mistakes right here.
Well, it started on the way into the corner, and then that recovering car spun right back in front of the field again, leaving some of them absolutely nowhere to go. Couldn't really see what was the very first bit of contact there, but it was very early, and it was definitely contact.
I was about to say why someone would make so many mistakes this early. And we know Felice, the championship favorite, usually doesn't make mistakes like he's been making.
Oh, sorry. He got pushed into the corner. I thought he was going to go straight on, but he pulled it up in time again.
I was going to say, how hard is it to hold on to the grip now that if you're getting bump trapped in the entry on top of it?
Well, it doesn't help. It certainly doesn't help. I mean, that was the right decision, though, from Luke Wallace that time round. He has been making moves early on in this race, and aggressively so as well. He actually got a flash of the lights from Tony Costello as he went through there. I don't think Costello was very pleased, but Wallace made the right decision that time to push Jim Felice, because the gap was at 9/10 of a second. They can't afford to let Caleb Lemon get out the slipstream.
Caleb right now is starting to pull away a little bit right now. He's up by 7/8 of a second just about here. Caleb in the VR seems to be in a good rhythm in this group. This is the best rhythm I think we've seen Caleb have all season.
It's certainly been a good start from him. And he's certainly putting the rest. Oh dear, Colin McKenzie in the wall. This is a replay from a few minutes ago at Blanchimont. Just pulls off to the side of the road and thankfully stays out the way. The drivers were actually warned explicitly before this race, by the way, about holding your brakes after an incident, and good to see that was listened to on that occasion.
so. They all stay in the line for now, expecting pit stops about 15 minutes or so, by the way. And so far, no major surprises in this train. We talk a lot about the endurance race that happened, of course, over the weekend with the iRacing 24 Hours of Spa. Obviously an interesting weekend, but your thoughts on what we've seen from the virtual 24 hours and how some of the skills may translate to tonight?
Well, it's a slightly different skill set, I suppose. This race is barely or just over half of the length of one stint of that race, never mind the entirety of its duration. So it is a very, very different sort of ordeal for the drivers today, but there will have been learnings from it. As I mentioned, the early part of that Spa 24 hours, not sure about the lower splits, but especially in some of the higher splits, it was about making a front group and saving the fuel, and that's exactly what we're seeing here in this race too. Right the way back to 13th place, all of these drivers have made the group, and in varying different ways and at varying different rates. They are saving a bit of fuel where they can as well. So the principle for the early on Spa 24 hours is actually pretty similar to the principle for a sprint race like this one.
And mind you, 40% fuel limit, and they crossed over the BOP, importantly enough, from the 24 hours of Spa. So whatever adjustments were made to the cars for the 24 hour, they were made for tonight's race too.
Now that surprises me in a sense that Joey Costello's doing so well. The Ferrari was hit with a pretty big BOP adjustment, and it wasn't very well selected in the higher splits as a result of that. The cars very much to have during that event were the BMW and the Ford, but we don't really have any of those at the front.
We haven't seen too many Fords at the front this year in general, but you see the battle for ninth at the bottom of your screen. Down Peterson, Brett Thurmond staying in line, trying to keep up with that Ferrari.
And these are the danger places as far as I'm concerned. These guys are in danger of losing the front group if they battle too hard, and that could be a real worry as Evan McKay makes his way down the inside and through into 10th place, ahead of Brett Thurmond, then Felix Feliz, who is now 12th, but those are the battles that can split apart groups.
Back up front, about 10 minutes through this time around, you see some of the split differences between some of the drivers right now. Caleb still holding firm at now 0.6 of a second. The advantage for Lee is slowly starting to chip away with draft effect, as you see that lineup from Luke Wallace.
Yeah, Wallace closing in, but he's not going to do anything other than bump draft the Porsche here. They are in danger here. This front three getting away entirely. Tony Costello not quite able to stay with these guys. I mentioned in qualifying that he was in a lofty position compared to his championship position, and considering he's not finished in the top 5 all season, even the place he is now would still be a success. It's just a worry for everybody behind him that they might not be in contact with the leaders anymore.
Right now, drivers like Tower Graff also are making up ground, by the way, you see on the pylon, compared to the single file choo-choo train of staying in line and work together. We started to really come into formation for the front runners. Take a look on board meanwhile. This is once again from Feliz. And outside of the mistakes early on, Jim's been handling this race perfectly in line with what we expected.
Yeah, it pretty much is. So we have a look at the front of the race from that onboard camera. Yeah, it's pretty much how we expected here. Single file for the front drivers, although this group will get smaller. I've got no doubt about that. This group is getting stretched by Caleb Lehman, who is quick, and he's too quick for some of those down towards the back. Even with the draft, they're struggling to stay in. Even Tony Costello is struggling to stay in that little bit. So this is getting nervy now. This is why I said earlier on, qualifying will always be important. It's not difficult to overtake, but it's important you don't get caught behind a driver who can't stay with the front group.
So far, this group is starting to see some splintering. You already talked about the battle between the 9th place cars like Peterson and company. They've nearly lost to touch Joey Costello. In fact, the top 6 with Jared Keane is starting to break away for the AM cars as well in this pack. So now it's the matter of what goes to mind too when you see the pack splinter about like this, especially if you have an incident like this one.
Now this is Quacknin. Side-to-side contact as he was in a battle with a Lamborghini, and one of the Ferraris went straight on into the wall there with a lot of damage as well. But this is especially damaging for Quacknin. I know you were interviewing him just in last week at Brands Hatch because he wasn't able to attend, was away with work, and so couldn't race. His drop week would have saved him from that, because if we take the drop week into account, which we're not yet because it's too early in the season, but if we did, he'd only be 20 points behind Jim Feliz, and he'd be 3rd in the championship. As it is right now, he's 9th, and he will stay down there if he has a performance like this, because effectively that DNS last week means that he can't afford to have a bad race in driving terms, because every point that he drives for now will count, and at the moment he's down in 26th.
Gonna be a long rest of the championship with the way things are going, especially for him. But it's interesting as well how the championship dynamics have, outside of Feliz doing well, been very much so. I've seen a lot of different players coming in way, I should say. Tyler Graff, for example, was expected to try and build upon his 2nd place run of the championship last season. He's back in 15th. William Fenson, he's already out of the race, as you can tell with the car on screen.
That car is like one of the Ferraris you'd see on the road maybe, and not the one that's been adjusted for GT3 specification in this class. Here goes Luke Wallace to the outside line now. Get the inside for the second part, but now Caleb Lemon's got to go. Caleb Lemon's got a real chance here to break away with the lead of this race as the battle for second emerges.
Side by side for second, Wallace outside, Feliz inside, and it is starting to get fairly dark. Headlights are slowly starting to turn on a couple of the cars, but not all. In line goes Feliz, he holds on to second, but that allows the 1 second gap to form between first and second.
Yep, Wallace has got to push now. He's got to push. He can't go for the, well, he could go for the overtake, but that would resign them to second and the rest. So he's got to push now, and there he goes, straight into the back of the Porsche. He can bring that gap below a second, and then hope that Jim Feliz can do some of the heavy lifting with what is a very agile Porsche, actually, through the middle sector.
They have only an estimated about 9 laps to close this gap up, including the pit stop coming up. They're expected to have about 16 laps with the way things are looking. What's going on, meanwhile, with who was your AM points leader? It's not going good.
It's not going good for Pete Mayer, I'm afraid, who has gone for another spin and a crash at Blanchimont. He will have to take his drop week for this round, surely, but considering that drop round was taken with a good finish, a decent finish, I'll say, just outside the top 15, I think it was, he shouldn't lose stacks of points, and especially considering it's not his main championship rivals who are currently right up there at the front. Well, I suppose that's not really true, is it? Joey Costello's there, so yeah, it's not a good day at all, actually.
Yeah, right now, those AM leaders have not swapped around at all, really, so far. Waldo Walden having a great race, by the way. This is kind of intriguing because Waldo was more so an oval driver before in the PRL.
Yeah, he's got plenty of PRL experience as Waldo Walden, but good to see him making strides in the GT3 Championship. He is 10th now in the standings. Came out very close to actually being in contention for the win last week. He was only a second or so, a bit less than a second actually, behind Joey Costello, who ended up winning the race last week, but immediately at turn 1 got caught up in contact with the BMW, and so was sent straight into the wall, ended up finishing 4th, but that was a good marker of where he is, given he was so close to maybe taking a victory, or at least challenging for one.
So time continues to pass for Tony Costello and company in this pack. Sounds like we've had a pit stop, by the way. Couple drivers starting to peel on down like Sortino and company. So the pit window is open here. That's at the midway point already.
Somebody just go off there. Was that Felix Feliz? I swear I just saw someone go straight on at Eau Rouge.
Yeah, that looked a bit weird.
It did.
He has crashed. Can't confirm it was Felix Feliz who has crashed his Corvette.
Now, how on earth did he do that? Because he didn't even seem to make any attempt to turn for the corner there. Almost like a puncture, but that'll be odd.
Let's see if we get a look here in a moment. But your leader's still in line. One of the Eric Costellos and Tony still keeping up here. By the way, they have maintained the packet lead. So there's that. That was the effort you were talking about. It only took 2.5 laps for them to gain back up.
Yeah, it was that crucial push from Wallace right at the same time, or right at the crucial time, I should say, that kept them in the group. Wallace is actually struggling himself a little bit now, and he's in danger of losing the group himself after helping stitch it back up together again. But you can start to see the pace take its toll. There's only 6 in touch now. Waldo Warden and Joey Costello did a very good job as AMS to stay in touch for so long. Felix Feliz there, I think, has had a technical failure because he was turning left you very, very rarely hit the inside wall at Eau Rouge there, and he continued to turn left after the contact with the wall, which suggests to me a technical failure where the wheel resets, and when it does that, it goes to full lock left always. So that looks like what's happened there.
So Wallace and Berquist with the tech issue. Window is open for the main drivers up front. Also coming in this time by Joey Costello. So now, how long do these drivers go? Usually the average is, say, in about a minute or so, we should see a pit swarm. And how powerful will this undercut be, you think, for Wallace?
Not entirely sure, really, what we're going to see in terms of undercut or overcut here. Just to use last week as a reference, Jim Feliz, who's currently in second right now, was second at Brands Hatch before the pit stops last week as well. He went a lap longer than Wallace, who's just gone in, and came out even further behind than what he was before, so didn't really work for him on that occasion. Normally it's the overcut that does work by doing this, but as I say, it didn't for Feliz last week, so it sort of depends on your speed as well. It very much depends on whether Wallace is in clean air or not, but because the pit lane time here is so long, we're using the GP and endurance pits, you might be more likely to come out in clean air if you stop early than you were at a very short Brands Hatch circuit.
So off and away, by the way, went Wallace there. Kev Lemon still holding on. Just starting this race in third, he has led much of the way so far. The OG McLaren so far has stayed very, very solid despite the googly eyes.
Yeah, it's a great livery, isn't it, to have that addition. Normally get to have a look at him in VR himself with the googly eyes on the front. It's become very, very famous in the PRL. And not often do we actually see him challenging for the win quite in the way and leading laps quite as many as we've got at the moment, but he really is, and he's trying to break away as well. Look at him weaving to try and break the slipstream of Jim Feliz.
Just a tiny bit as he makes his way to Longchamp. Coming up to the final chicane, we'll see if he feels station right. Yes, he will. Jim Feliz is joining him in the pit lane as McKay makes some moves trying to defend Waldo Walden before their pit stop party.
That's quite an aggressive move, but Waldo had no choice but to give that position over because he knew he was coming in. The amount of drivers that are in right now suggests to me that most of them are at their limit in terms of fuel. Joshua Chinsky and Brett Furman are the only ones so far who can go one lap further.
It's just me or Jim is a little bit quicker down this hillside on the pit road?
I think he might have just entered a bit quicker. He was very close anyway, and it's don't forget what a narrow pit entry it is here as well.
Yeah, right on the limiter is the expectation for these drivers. Only 2 drivers now in the pit lane, Chinsky and Brett Thurman, for the time being.
Yeah, so let me just give you some times to look for here. 11.9 was the seconds in the box for Luke Wallace, who is the first driver who pitted, now back out there on the circuit. And for the AMS, for Waldo Walden, he'll be aiming for 11.1. That's what Joey Costello did in his stop.
Can they hit either of those times? Already, Lehman's away, and he holds on in front of Jim Feliz. And where is Luke Wallace going to be? He's going to be a fair bit behind, correct me if I'm wrong here.
Waldo Walden was slow there, by the way. Expect him to lose the lead to Joey Costello, who will roar past him and does. Joey Costello roars past Waldo Walden to become the leader in AM, and Evan McKay's got through as well on Walden, so that's not good news at all. Wallace is ahead of Feliz, but behind Lehman, who's held on to the lead just.
So Wallace at speed did cycle, yes, in front of Feliz. This is similar to what happened last time out. Had some great speed with Feliz trying to save. Used the speed to outpace Feliz even after the pit stop cycle. Is this going to be even bigger of a difference for Luke Wallace here after getting his first win of the PRL last time? We'll find out. But Lehman seems to be on track with 12 minutes to go to try and get himself a win.
Yeah, it's a pretty similar comparison these 2 weeks, from Wallace undercutting Feliz and benefiting from that both times, as it's turned out, in the last 2 weeks. But it's worth remembering that Luke Wallace did have a 1.8 second lead after the pit stops last week. He's certainly not even got the lead this time, never mind the gap, so he's in a big battle this week.
Gail Lehman, by the way, a two-time winner already in PRL competition. Last time he picked up some wins. It was a win apiece in prototype in GT3 competition. Can he make himself a three-time winner? We'll just have to wait and see. Chinsky and Thurman, by the way, are in the pit lane already. So, looks like the pit stop cycle's also really broken the pack from about up to 9 cars deep down to just 5.
Yeah, it's a much smaller group. It has maybe, well, I thought it was going to allow the AMS to battle for the lead themselves, but actually they're not even doing that, because Warden's had such a bad stop and a bad entry to the pit lane that he's lost the lead and he's lost a lot of time, so he drops a lot further back, leaving Joey Costello to take the lead, and probably the championship lead, the way things are going at the end of this race. Luckily though for the pros, they've been left to battle it out between themselves. I'm trying to find the missing it's Joshua Chinsky, who's out the pit lane already, and he has gone 1 second quicker in the box than everyone. He's going to be leading.
Well, how about that? That came out of nowhere for Chinsky, but can he hold on to it? That's a huge question. Wow.
Unbelievable from Joshua Chinsky, really. I don't even know how he's managed that, really, but he has done. He is now in the lead of this race and has a chance to do something quite remarkable here, really, something that he hasn't done and been able to do all season long. One of his better performances so far has barely seen him inside the top 10. This is remarkable.
The only times Chinsky has won has been in a prototype. He's never won in the GT3 in his time in this part of the series for PRL. With under 10 minutes to go after running as far deep in the pack as 5th or 6th, he now is in the driver's seat here. So what does Lehman and what does Wallace do now is the huge question.
It's an absolutely massive question, and I'm not really sure what they are going to do about this. I mean, this could be just a straight fight from here, to be honest. 9 minutes to go. We should have at least 4 laps, and so plenty of time to unseat Joshua Chinsky if they want to, but I can't really believe he's managed it, Chinsky. And so we have a look at the Felix Feliz incident again. Look at that wheel there at the front. He has definitely got a technical problem.
Right into the wall for a significant contact, and that obviously destroyed the number 10's chances here after being hard left into the corner. And so 8:40 to work with. And Right on the doorstep is the rest of this pack. Can they do anything? It seems as though it's difficult now that the laps have built up to even make the pass to the leader compared to the start.
Yeah, I mean, the gap's a little bit larger, to be fair, between first and second than what it was at the very start. But don't forget that Caleb Lehman had a serious portion of that first stint in the lead as well without being challenged. So it may just be a theme. And Chinsky will want to make sure that it remains, he remains unchallenged. Look at him weaving around to try and break the slipstream there, but it's going to be difficult to hold back the McLaren on the straight.
It's going to be a huge challenge for his Corvette. Speaking of Corvettes, Wallace is also still maintaining well in this pack. So where do you make the move?
I think it's got to be into Lecombe, to be honest, for Caleb Lehman. He is quickest there. That's where the McLaren really comes into its own. It's not the middle sector, really. You can see him start to lose time a little bit here. But he'll gain a bit on the back straight towards Blanchemont on the bus stop chicane. He won't be close enough by there, but he'll gain some time. Then he'll gain some time on the front straight, the run up towards Eau Rouge, and then by the Kemmel straight, he'll hope that he's close enough. He's got the slipstream, and he's able to make his way through. But it's not a given by any means. He's got to do the work to get closer than he is at the moment.
7 minutes to work with on the clock. How long, or rather, how late can you wait? Better yet, what do you do if you're Tony, who's lost the pack?
Yeah, I'm afraid he was teetering on the edge of that through most of the first stint, and I'm not entirely surprised to see that he's managed it now, unfortunately. So he and Jared Keane will fight for 5th place between themselves. Up here, I don't think it is a question about waiting at the moment. I think for the moment, Caleb Lehman needs to prove that he can get close enough and he can get through, because at the moment, I don't see a way in which he does.
Right now, the gap down to a couple car lengths yet again. Chinsky, he's been having a much better corner exit speed, it seems, compared to those in the pack, though.
Oh, Lehman's had a good exit here, though. It's probably the best exit so far we've seen since the pit stops. 3 laps to go as we start this one, by the way, with 6 minutes. Lehman is coming for the lead this time.
You build up the super run, though. Still needs to close up 2 car lengths. Lights are now fully on. Chinsky is going defense mode.
Did he really need to? Well, probably, actually. Lehman got quite close there, but that was just the first little chapter in the story, if you like. Lehman will have other chances than that, but he has proved that he can get close enough.
Seems to be trying to position himself as well. It's back to that chess match theory that we talk so much about. Had to plan out the moves, and right now, just to make their way towards Bouillon, they seem to be going into plan mode.
And Lehman has been here before. He's finished, as you mentioned already, a winner in this series in the past. But this season, he's been on the podium, don't forget. Just behind Jim Feliz on that day. That came at Daytona, the day when Kwok broke away from the rest of the field. But Joshua Chinsky in season 3 of 2024 hasn't done anything like this in his class. His best finishing position came 1 week ago, and it wasn't even a top 10 finish. He recovered from an off-track moment on the opening lap to finish 11th, but here he is first with just 2 laps to go.
Expect that to go at the stripe here. Take a quick glance at that mark in a moment when they come across. 4 minutes to go on the clock. Running 2-minute, 20-second lap times. There's a look at the battle for 5th, by the way. Feliz and Jared Keane has very quietly been up inside the top 5 much of this race.
Yeah, good recovery, good moves, quietly made. It's always a good thing if you're not really on our cameras. It means you're not really getting involved in anything. Jim Feliz losing the back of this, by the way. It's a 3-car train for the lead, which Caleb Lehman might be at the front of at the end of the Kemmel straight.
He's lined up. He's dialed in. A push now from Lehman to the left side. Chinsky from the right. Side by side up the straightaway. Better run for the 42. Run up to Lacombe from the entry off of the Kemmel Straight. Chinsky bobbles, weaves, blocks it off.
They were so close in straight line speed there, in top speed. Oh, Lehman's got it a bit wrong through Malmedy. Here comes Luke Wallace. No, he doesn't go for second place. I think Wallace should have gone for that, to be honest. He could have gotten down the inside and through into second and maybe taken the place, but he's got a slow down, has he, Caleb Lehman? He's slow.
Blow down for Lehman, and that has actually cost Luke Wallace a shot, possibly. Lehman still yet to clear it.
Yeah, he got it all wrong at Malmedy. He went all over the curb, and he's maybe only now cleared the slowdown. He might not even have cleared it just now. He's still trying, and now he finally does. I think now he's up to speed, but that might be the race.
And a costly mistake. And again, all it takes is you cross any of these corners more than 50% of the car, depending on the section, you can get penalized. And I believe that run you mentioned off track through Malmedy, that was not one of the exemption areas that he would have gone more than 50% over the curbing of the car.
That's absolutely costly mistake for Lehman, who I think was on course to win, to be honest. Thought he would have the legs over Chinsky, thought he would be able to pass him on the last lap, but he's not going to from here. I don't think Luke Wallace is going to from here. 9/10 a second. Chinsky has just got to hit his marks for one lap, and he'll be a race winner for the first time this season.
Can he provide a clean lap? Luke Wallace using a lot of runoff space to be able to try and push here. He's going to need an absolute miracle. White flag is confirmed to be waving from Barney.
Yeah, Luke Wallace, the winner last week, did it from a very different scenario. He'll have to do it from behind this time. As Caleb Lehman is not pushing him, he's going to go for second. This is the fight. It's not for the win, it's for second.
Was after a bobble from Wallace. Wallace going deeper on the brakes though. Able to get a more straight line despite the shallow entry.
And there's a much better line from Lehman. A good run. Oh, he's quite far over the other curve this time. Wallace having to defend into Bruxelles and hangs on to second again.
How about a change of fortunes indeed for this race? It looked like Chinsky wasn't going to be in the conversation. Now the battle up for second. Wallace having some troubles again.
Well, that was handing it to him on a plate. Wonder whether Wallace now struggling a little. I think he's been struggling in the second half of the race, to be honest, especially compared to last week where he was so dominant. Still third at least, and if things stay as they are, he'll gain 1 or 2 points over Jim Felice, who overall has had another decent day and will again extend his championship lead with a record 5th top 5 in a row.
All this is with the battle still on for second, yes. Joshua Chinsky is broken away by 1.2 seconds. It's one more run through the bus stop chicane as well as Blanchimont coming up. Caleb Lehman will hold on for now, but for Chinsky, he looks in the clear. SRT White's Joshua Chinsky, for the first time in GT3s, will come out of the final corners. Some hard aggressive fighting for second with Lehman having to play defense, but it's Chinsky who will take the win at Spa. Josh Chinsky and Lehman in second. Wallace in third, Felice fourth. And win going the way of Joey Costello.
Yeah, what a great drive from Joey Costello, making big strides forward in the championship. He started the day 13 points behind Pete Mayer, and he will be possibly ahead of him even after the drop week. Now, this will for sure be Mayer's drop week, by the way, because he finished down in 32nd overall, although credit to him for actually finishing. It's by far his worst performance of the season so far.
Well done battle indeed here. But the celebrations will come around in a bit here. It's a lengthy cool-down lap, remember, here at Spa, before the celebrations can get underway. Overall, 41 cars took the start. 32 finished on the lead lap here today. An unreal race. Once again, I believe everyone's crossed the stripe already. Let's take a look at the unofficial race results as they are. Chinsky leaving Wallace. Feliz, your top 4, Jim Feliz. Tony Costello in 5th. Evan McKay, Jared Keane, Joey Costello, Walden, and Dale Peterson, your top 10. Thurman, Steffi, Graf, Bush, Buck Hamilton, Sortino, Cricket, should say. Rhines, Kwoknin recovers to 19th. 20th spot was Ian Cabana. Provo, Stanovic along with Mark Halen, Brent Pancari, Barry Cochran in 25th for 40th starting spot. David Morse, Colin McKenzie still recovers to 27th. From dead last, 28th for Bombeck, Bruno and Sayad, your top 30. Dale Elgin in 31st, then here in 32nd. Mulholland, 1 lap down, and then your DNF list. Regan Chandler 34th, Finaro in 35th, Berquist 36th, Felix Feliz in 37th, Vincent, Ryan Chandler, and Jeffries the top 40, and Vince in general finished dead last. That's a look top to bottom at the running order here tonight from iRacing's virtual Spa. As we first speak with Joshua Chinsky. Joshua, you've picked up a win in GT3. How does it feel?
It feels amazing, man, and to win it on the fuel save, there's no words to describe this feeling, man. It's awesome.
Where did the idea come from, and what's in turn the difficulty to execute that?
So thankfully with being up front, I had a lot of cars in front of me, so I had the draft. All teammates, which made it nice to not have to worry about battles from behind. I got it from all of the sessions that we do with SRT. We do practice races multiple times a week, and I'm always big on trying to see how much fuel I can save while still keeping pace. And one of the races, it just kind of clicked for me, and I was like, you know what? Let's try it tonight and see what happens.
Well, on that note, overall, this adds to what's been an interesting season, a bit more of a needing points type of night. You get the points you need. How would you describe the feeling now that you have by far your best performance of the season with half a season to go?
It's great. I mean, I really struggled the first couple races. A lot of issues on my own of just self-induced. So we were kind of lacking in the points in regards to I wasn't really participating much. So this is kind of my rebound race to be able to bounce back and show SRT White, hey, I can earn us some points too, and hey, those other SRT teams better beware, because we're headed to the top.
Well, any shout-outs you'd like to give here tonight?
Shout out to SRT guys. I mean, the prep that we do, I couldn't have done this without all of the sessions that we do together, the practice, the hard work. Shout out to my parents who are watching this race, and shout out to the PRL for hosting an amazing league, and I'm so happy I get to race in it.
Congratulations once again on the victory tonight, Josh.
Thank you, guys.
Joshua Chinsky comes away with the win here tonight. Second spot went the way of Caleb Lehman. After leading much the way before pit stops, he's with the win.
Welcome in, Caleb. Good to have you with us. We saw the googly eyes eyeing up a victory, but it wasn't to be today. Just tell us about that race from your perspective and where maybe you felt that you and the others slightly fell short as a group.
Well, I mean, I did basically everything I could. I knew that Josh was going to try and go long. He's really good at fuel saving, and he did the Spa-24, so he got a lot of practice in fuel saving, and I didn't think that he'd be able to cover my gap, but I just didn't quite have it on my outlap trying to protect the tires.
Yeah, we've been discussing ourselves a little bit about the Spa-24, maybe about who did it, who didn't, how that's affected. What's your take on it? Did you do it, and has it affected these races very much in terms of being better at that fuel saving?
Unfortunately, I did not take part. Our SRT team had a field of, I think, 6 guys that did it, and they got a lot of laps in. They did a really good job fuel saving. So maybe if I had taken part, I might have gotten a little bit more more prepared. But I'm still happy with P2.
As you should be as well. Congratulations on second place, Caleb, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks very much, Caleb Lim, on their second place in the round 5 of the GT3 Fix Series tonight.
Well, a strong performance overall, but Luke Wallace, he ends up finishing in 3rd spot. Luke, how would you describe those final laps and what was going through your mind there?
Oh, those were intense. I mean, especially the last lap. I think Caleb was trying to give me a little bit of a push to catch us back up to Josh, but got a little bit unstable there and almost crashed, so...
Yeah, I was going to say, it was like a nervous time in terms of the handling of the car. How was the cars feeling in terms of the setup here tonight?
Well, I mean, the beginning of the race was fine, but I'd say about 3 laps before the pits, the rears just started shredding. I couldn't keep them down pretty much through any corner, and a lot of them I was just drifting through, and it was just difficult.
Well, on that note, next time out we go to Germany. Your thoughts on the next circuit?
Yeah, honestly, I haven't really done the GP layout much. I've only really done the combined layout, so I'll have to practice up on that, but I don't see why I shouldn't get another podium.
Well, calling your shot once again. You've been on a streak after all. Any shout you'd like to give tonight?
Yeah, shout out to my family for watching, my friends for watching, and the team just doing a great job tonight. Yeah.
Well, once again, congratulations on the run.
Thank you.
Once again, Luke Wallace coming away with a solid run. Joey Costello, though, picks up the AM win. A big point swing for him. He was with Ewan.
Hey, welcome in, Joey. Good to have you with us. We'll get to the point swing in a couple of moments, but the race itself, first of all, were you surprised that Waldo lost quite so much time in the pit stop phase? Because I certainly was. What was your feeling through the pit stop phases?
I was pretty surprised. I thought I was going to catch him at the end of Kemmel Straight, but yeah, pretty lucky. I did a great outlap, and I think that might have sealed it for me. It really looked like he wasn't going to make a mistake, so that was kind of my only option.
And in terms of the championship, Pete Mayer finished down in 32nd, I think it was, in the end, after starting down there, ending up last on the opening lap. Not a good day for him at all, but the point swing should mean that if you're not in the lead, you're near it, and you're certainly both still very much close to one another and competing for that title right the way to the end, we hope. What are your thoughts going into those final 4 rounds with what is maybe becoming an increasingly 2-horse race?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'll have to take a look at the points. It feels like some more people would be running in it. I know Waldo's had pace all season. But yeah, I guess maybe I got a little lucky with Pete's poor result today, but hopefully I see him on track for the next couple of rounds and have a good battle out there.
You make a good point as well. After the drop rounds are applied, there'll be a few more people involved too. You're absolutely right. Congratulations on first place here tonight, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Joey Costello, the AM winner from Spa tonight.
Once again, those are your top drivers here tonight. I'd like to thank everyone from speaking with us here on Race Spot when it comes to our Fix Series coverage. And Ewan, an interesting one to say the very least when it comes to the fixed side. Now we head sprint racing where we open up the setups and add 5 more minutes to the clock.
Absolutely. Wonder how those two things are going to affect things over the course of the 40 minutes of racing here. Not too much, to be honest. We should see the similar kind of racing. Importance in qualifying again, which is currently going on, by the way. And then also making the front group, as we've just seen there. It's going to be interesting again. That was a good start to the evening with the Fix Series there.
An exciting one once again on the docket, but Gregory Hobson is your points leader entering tonight. 14 points, the gap between him and Rob Clark. They scored dead even points last time out, by the way, on this trot. Chris Sowan is in third, then Fernando Jaquez and Carl Modoff. After taking the drop early in the season, he's the one to keep an eye on. 3 wins this season for Carl. And go ahead.
Sorry there. Yeah, it's a pretty big gap, isn't it? Really, between first and second in AM especially. But yeah, just to go back to that briefly, it's pretty close. It's probably the closest championship we have, to be honest, the Pro in sprints.
It's going to be an interesting AM battle to the rest of the way with so far Brock leading the way. Delta Sport leading the team standings, by the way. They've looked very comfortable with Sopec Precision Racing Gold up there as well. SimCity Racing also in the top 3 in the 300-point club. And so far, it's been a battle, if anything, in the race wins between Delta Sport and Precision Racing on the campaign, Ewan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see in the sprint series just how close things are here in the team standings, especially, which can sometimes get very, very spread out and very, very inconsequential by the end, but it doesn't look like it's going to be quite that way here. Plenty of great teams up towards the front, plenty of great teams fighting for the title, and we're none the wiser as to who is actually going to take it at this stage.
6 minutes still to go on the racetrack, and no surprise, Carl's the one at the top of the board. The speed's in the 2:16s for the pole right now.
Yeah, very impressive indeed. The first 8 drivers within half a second of one another as well, so very, very impressive to see just how close things are at the front. Don't forget that Karl Modov was the winner 1 week ago at Brands Hatch. He's in great form. 8.8 seconds was the gap at the end after dominating that race, after a very bizarre situation where Gregory Hovsen qualified on pole and then didn't take the start, not on the track anyway.
Yeah, had a technical issue of sorts that seen him have to charge through the field. It's still big that he was able to even maintain the gap for the points lead, Gregory did, compared to potentially losing a ton. He had to come from dead last from the pit lane, and if it wasn't for the qualifying performance, he wouldn't have been even that far up, because you would lose an extra couple seconds per pit stall.
Yeah, it was a really great recovery from Gregory Hovsen, really rescuing his situation. If we were to apply the drop weeks here, he would stay 14 points ahead of Rob Clark, because their worst results are the same, the two of them. Chris Sohn would drop a further point back. Fernando Yaquez would maybe get a point closer, but really neither here nor there. The only worry that they've really got is Karl Modov, who would get over all of them at the moment. If we apply the drop weeks, he is the championship leader. They do have to be very concerned about him.
Brendan the Bone taking a look at him. Bone so far very quiet but very solid on the performance. He's one of those SimCity Racing drivers, and right now is working with the rest of his team for qualifying pace. Martin Crisp leading the pack, Jason Allen behind.
Yeah, Tabone got his best performance of the season so far with the 5th position at Brands Hatch last week, giving him 7th in the championship standings now. And as you say, working together in qualifying, something that we've seen a bit more of tonight actually than I was expecting to see, really. Didn't think it would make too much difference round here, but clearly it's worth doing.
New top time. Gregory Hovsen just set it by a 1/10 of a second just about on the qualifying pylon. So a swap there as, oh boy, it's like rush hour traffic trying to organize who's going to lead the packs here.
Certainly is. 44 of them in the session at the moment. I can see 41 drivers who look like they're realistically going to race and who are realistically on the circuit at the moment. As you say, very, very busy, even into the final couple of corners, with only one more chance really here. Just over 3 minutes. You should be sizing up for your final attempts now.
So we'll see how Carl now does on the racetrack. He's been on his own most of the session. Looks to be trying to set things up, not on push mode. He seems almost like in preparation for the push lap with the way he's handling or sweeping around the track, just trying to heat the tires up.
Yeah, he's absolutely in preparation mode here, not going for it. This is what it looks like when you're going for it. Brandon Tabone getting the big slipstream down the Kemmel Straight and getting through the first sector, now into the middle, jumping over these curves at Lecombe. It's important to get over these, especially over on the right-hand side there. Slightly missed it at Malmedy, but it's okay. He can recover it on the way down the hill here into Bruxelles. Difficult constantly getting away from you this corner, but the new Corvette is very sort of planted on all 4 corners, very level. and it's very stable through those into No Name. Doesn't look quite as smooth as you'd hope to see. I don't really know if this is looking like an improvement for the moment at the halfway stage, just over the halfway stage.
Yeah, right now, DeBone in front of Cantonio by 2 to 3 tenths, by the way, on the pylon. Good run for Kevin Cantonio yet again. Your best in M, by the way, Nathan Jennings in 20th. A big difference for your top driver and pro in the AM by about a second. That's the spread between 1st and 20th today.
Yes, bizarre, isn't it, that we see them so close in the fixed series, but so not close in the sprint series between pro versus AM. I don't think the one difference, I suppose, is the setup. But surely the pro setups aren't that much better than the AM setups. I would find that difficult to believe, so don't really know what that's all about. But it's a scrap for the very minor points in AM in the Sprint Championship. A lot less points are scored generally by the race winner and by those who are trailing the race winner in the AM class compared to the fixed series, where we just saw 2 drivers in the top 10.
That's a take, I will say, with the conversation. That's like saying, what's a metaphor that will not upset people? That's like saying the Team Redline setup is the same thing as the iRacing fixed setup.
Well, I don't know. I don't feel like the setups would be that different between pro and AM. I mean, I don't know how much crossover even there is between these teams running both pro and an AM. Surely if you've got a pro and an AM driver in a team, let's say, you'd give them both the same setup, I would have thought.
There's a bit more crossover in the fixed side, I've noticed, though, where you have a pro driver group with an AM driver. It's more so if you're a pro driver, you're likely group with pro drivers, it seems, for this series, for the team side this season.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense in that for a points standpoint, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know. It's just one thing I can think of as a difference. Maybe there's other reasons for such a big difference, but it is surprising. 20th place for the first AM drivers, very far down.
Aiden Yun having his best qualifying run all season. It's been a bit of a rough one at times this year. Off track last time, so he will not add to his totals and take the checker flag right here. Aiden Yun has showed flashes of great speed, but he's only scored about 30 or so points outside of his top 5 in round 2. Cantonio, speaking of top 5s, he's in top 5 but had a DNF last time, and remember, those are going to be hurtful for your championship. If he misses a race or anything, will not be able to really keep up with the championship.
Yeah, just and the especially disappointing thing for Cantonio was that it was a how can I say, unforced error. It was on his own. He wasn't pushed into the wall by anybody. Just caught the grass on the way towards turn 3, which is easy to do, by the way. We've all done it, but it had really disastrous consequences, not only for himself actually, but for the rest of the field, or some of the rest of the field, because some of them hit him as they went past. Cantonio had to tow back to pit lane, and that was the end of his day. He's 8th in the championship at the moment, but looks like he's qualified 5th as we come to an end here.
Gregory Hobson, top of the board in qualifying, 2:16.7 to close out the session. That's called laying the gauntlet as the last car on track outside of Christopher and Arnaud Genest.
Yeah.
And that gauntlet is going to be very difficult to beat tonight.
Certainly is. 10th and a half between himself and Modov is a pretty big margin. He didn't even need to set that last lap. He's just showing his speed again there, Gregory Hobson.
Here's a look at the qualifying runs. Gregory Hobson, Carl Modov, the first 2 spots, followed by Aiden Yun and Brandon Tabone. Then it's Cantonio, and Dickinson does get himself up there in SCR2's entry. He'll start in front of Lindquist and the boss man and Martin Crisp. Jason Allen up there, also CRT Sim Racing's Haquez. Simpson in the 11th spot. Jack Hedgecock's getting up there after being in the 20s for much of the session before. Marc-Andre Veron. Ethan Bass, he's finally found some good speed tonight in the Ford after having a nightmarish start to the year. Chris Sowan and Arnaud Genest in the top 16. Clark, Dominic Olivier in 18th. J.R. Williams and Connor Wagner back in 20th. Ryan Rees is your top driver in AM. He tucked the top spot by a couple hundredths in the session. Nathan Jennings right alongside. Miles Brown also grouped up with them. Those three will be having a bit of a fight to start. Spears in 24th. Then Noah Anderson and Peter Muller in the top 26. David Holland back in 27th. Delta Sport backed entry. Then Drake Smith, Eric Palacio, and Chris Stewart amongst the top 30. Hodgson, Brock way far back. Another AM points leader having a rough one for qualifying. Knapp, Robertson, Beaver, Sheriff in your top 36. Rob Campbell will start 37. Carollo, Stouffer should say, along with Dan Murrah and Thomas Rep. Last set of time. Big names did not set times, by the way. That includes Nick LaDuque, who's currently amongst those who missed the entire qualifying session. Andrew Lanning, who is not at the track. And Max Tilliou, who is currently not at the track. Much cooler track conditions for this race here. Despite being 8:40 in sim time, how's that going to factor into the racing here?
Yeah, we didn't get the darkness that I was necessarily expecting actually in that first race, but I suppose we don't quite get to 10 o'clock, do we? Don't really get anywhere near it in these races, so we are still going to just see this sun setting. Whether that's going to affect the racing or not really sure it will too much. I mean, only the real high temperatures of the summer would affect these cars over such a short distance of 40 minutes, but we're not really going to see that this season, and we haven't so far. I mean, next week we're starting at just 8:25 in the morning. Mugello is the first time in ages that we're starting anywhere near the middle of the day. In fact, it's the first time all season. It'll be round 7 of the Sprint Series. We'll be starting at midday, so that maybe is the first chance this season to really have a discussion about how these tyres might hold up in scorching temperatures in the middle of the day. That's if, of course, we do get them. You never know what the weather's going to do.
Well, what are your keys to be able to do well in 40 minutes for the open setups now?
It's going to be about staying in the front group again, and just as Joshua Chinsky proved to us, it's more about fuel saving than I first realised. I didn't mention it before the fixed series race because I thought that, a lot of them are going to be fuel saving. Surely it's not that beneficial if so many are doing it, but that's not true. Josh Chinsky showed it is possible to make a difference by doing something a little bit different or doing the fuel saving differently anyway. He was able to not only go a lap further than everybody else, but more crucially than that, take a second off his pit stop time. If any of these guys can do that and they're in the front group and they're in such a close battle, they might well vault themselves forward just as he did in the first race of the evening.
So let's find out how this goes here. Who do you think's going to do the best here tonight? Who do you think's going to be the winner?
Well, I'm glad that Gregory Hofson's made the start this time round. It's a pretty bizarre situation to not have the pole sitter starting for the front, so I'm going to go for a pole to victory for Hofson, just avenging that frustration that surely he would have felt last week despite getting on pole. He had to start for the pit lane, still got to 11th I suppose, but he'd like a much better result than that here in Spa.
Remember down the hillside when we get the start coming out of Les Sources. They get themselves all positioned for the initial start here. Glad to have you with us for the PRL GT3 Sprint Series here on RaceSpot. Para Delta Sport entries in control for this initial start. Hobson will start to the right, to the left, Karl Modov. Blue versus red on the paint schemes. And a much later launch it looks like for the 115. Green flag is out. Now underway we go. And that allows the top two to already get single filed out as they work together and go up the hillside together as one.
Yeah, it was always going to happen. The teammates were always going to work together. Oh, and there's contact already. I think bit of bodywork flying off, but I think everybody's just about okay as they come down the Kemmel Straight for the first time.
Alrighty, defensive maneuvers. Hobson trying to give some draft to Modov. Yun trying to move around the left side of the racetrack, trying to make some slice and dice moves through the common Melody. Instead, no sport entry. Modov holds on for now. All the top runners start to try and sort themselves. Cantonio wants himself in fourth, launches his way there.
Has he got there? He has. Good move. Wasn't expecting him to do that really, but the opening lap is as good a time as any, because if you do it later on, you're at big risk of splitting the group up for good. And to be fair, they nearly did straight away. Gregory Hobson had a small chance there as Modov and Young were going side by side, but he didn't have anywhere near enough time to make a margin, and so the Delta Sport Lamborghinis do remain 1 and 2.
And expect them to stay in sync on the strategy throughout the race today. Yun, he's a bit of a wild card. We've seen him whenever he's got pace, he's not afraid to use up the fuel to make a run for the lead.
It was a slightly untimely bit of gravel there, I'm afraid, and the two Lamborghinis now may well really work together here to try and put gaps into everyone else, as Kevin Simpson's gone off the road, I think, is dropping down the order at least further back.
Simpson had started this race in 11th is, we can confirm, the wrong way around on the racetrack. Everybody else has had a clean start. No major troubles outside of Kyle Robertson, it looks like. Just as calm was the start as you would hope for.
It is really. We saw a relatively clean start in the fixed series. Well, I'll say that. We did. I did say that before, and then we saw the replay at No Name Corner, and that wasn't clean. But you get the idea. It's been a relatively good start here too. Pleased to see it. And then we can get on with the actual racing now for the remaining 37.5 minutes.
And right now, still plenty of time to think about things. What goes through the mind of the driver this early, if anything? What goes through your mind this early on, where you see a train 20 cars deep?
I don't think it's as worrying maybe as it maybe sounds, but it's what's going through your mind at this stage is how can you save the fuel. I don't think these guys will have really seen or heard much from that first race, but they won't have needed to see it. They'll know themselves that fuel saving is going to be so important throughout this race, and so they're going to do it. That's what happened to Kyle Robertson at Pouhon.
That was a hard hit, and obviously breaks the suspension. Robertson also lost the entire back end of the car. Not just the bumper, but every other panel on the back end got peeled off the 23.
Just saw a car in the wall at No Name Corner there as well, by the way. Had absolutely no idea who it was, but there was definitely a car in the wall at No Name on lap 2 as well.
So, a lot of people having some trouble spots popping up here. How do you avoid being one of those that, well, joins the trouble spot brigade like Kevin Simpson here?
Oh, that's awkward. Oh, and he rolls back on the road. Oh, my word. Good avoidance for everybody, and then he holds the brakes. I mean, it's difficult to know what to do there, because as soon as he starts reversing, you can be sure someone will try and go round the back of him, and he'll be the one in the wrong. So did well to hold his brakes, but that was just one of those awkward oversteering moments on the exit of the curve for Pret. Thankfully, nobody collected him.
Coming up to 35 minutes to work with, by the way, as the train starts to really settle itself down here. Modov trying to laser his way to the corners, just set the fastest lap so far, 2:17.3 in the pack.
It's a very big pack as well at that. I think this is really going to be very little movement now for the remainder of this opening part of the race, and all the action is to come in the second half. All the action to come in the pit stops as well. First of all, in the pit lane, we'll just see how long it takes us to get there, how long these guys will wait. But be another quarter of an hour at least yet, I would have thought, before we really start to see who's really winning this race, because as much as Hovsen's leading as far as timing and scoring is concerned, is he really leading when the fuel is all sorted?
What happened to the 16? After having invalidated laps, let's see on the slow-mo. He's back to 41st and it's already a great Hovsen. What he's having in his mind right now, what's going to the mind of Modolf, knowing he's been the car to beat. Not just a car, the car on speed.
Yeah, I think he'll be very confident considering his record this season. Every round he's been at, he has won. So he'll be feeling very confident. Hovsen, though, I think will be pretty confident too with his speed. I mean, pole in the last 2 rounds is pretty impressive, and 3 second places as well. You know, he'll definitely be backing himself. So it's a bit of a war of confidence at the moment between these two. I just worry a little bit how much fuel Hovsen's saving compared to Modolf, who might be completely selling him at the moment for all that he's worth by just using his slipstream effectively. He has been for the first 7 minutes.
Still plenty of time to think about things. So, plotting continues on right here amongst those that have also moved up. Well, if you started top 10, you've remained top 10, but drivers like Connor Wagner in the mid-pack have gained spots, Joshua Spears. The AM lead has come down to just 2 cars, by the way, in Reeves and Jennings, and some of the other storylines. So, if anything, it's becoming even harder to get passes done compared to the fixed race, where it was down to just driver.
It feels very much like last week's races, to be honest. Fixed series race was pretty action-packed, an incident-filled at Brands Hatch, and then we got a pretty single-file and relatively incident-free sprint series race. Getting that again here, although I do think we're going to get some good action towards the finish as everyone starts to battle for their positions once pit stops have happened. But until that point, we're pretty incident-free and pretty overtake-free as things stand, much like 1 week ago.
Yeah, extremely calm, also highly competitive. If you make a slip up here, you're likely going to be pounced upon for a pass. I can tell you that just based on what we've seen here tonight.
Yeah, that is the worry hanging over everybody, really. The ability for you to lose places after a mistake. I mean, it's always the case in GT3 racing. At a lot of circuits, it can be difficult to overtake in a GT3 car. So once you are pushed out of line, once a driver sees another driver managing it, you want to follow them through, and all of a sudden you all start to pile on through on the same guy. So it can be a real problem if you get pushed offline. These drivers absolutely making sure that they don't manage that, and so far none of the top 10 really have.
This train already going as far back, by the way, as 6 seconds behind. Chris Sowan amongst the train. Ethan Bass has actually started to lose some ground. You see some of the biggest mover and shakers. Only +2s in the heart of the field. Want to touch upon the 52 though, because the Ford, it's been a struggle for that car. We're on board with Cantonio at the moment. But for Bass, in his orbit machine, after being the long time stalwart of Ford, has not had a great year in his car.
It's been a bit of a struggle. It's a shame, as I've always said, that the Ford GT is no longer an option, but understandable, I guess you'd say, with the Ford Mustang now added. I mean, I don't think he can be too disappointed in himself, though. I mean, he is the best Ford Mustang so far in the championship, as far as the overall and the pro only standing goes. So I don't think he should be very disappointed at all. I think he's just got the most of what he has out of what is realistically not the best car in the field.
Now, by the way, we did get someone who asked that question and gave the answer to what you're asking about the setup differences before. Here's a good point. if you're in the pro side, you're usually preferring loose is fast. Some people, if it's too loose on the downforce levels even, they're going to spin around like crazy. Some people might take a much more conservative set, is the viewpoint they had, Nick McLaughlin specifically, to be able to run the track compared to the pro cars.
Yeah, it's a different way of thinking about things, really. We just saw a change, by the way, there for fourth place, or at least side by side. Cantonio and Tabone seem to be battling it out a couple of moments ago. There have been one or two positional changes here, but none for the real leaders. Hofsson, Modoff and Young, who are now definitely away from the rest of the field after this battle for fourth really started. They have lost the front group.
So the pack starts to splinter apart here a little bit at least. Thoughts on Cantonio's season?
Yeah, it's been all right. I mean, 8th place so far in the standings. He's had some good results. I mean, 2nd place at Daytona is not to be looked over at all. That's a very good finish indeed, but I guess he'll just be disappointed with some of the results intermittently in there, most notably last week actually, whereas we've already talked about, he spun at turn 3. So yeah, I think it's been okay, and he might move up further actually when the drop week is applied to him.
Possibly. You never know how these points can shuffle over time, right? The SimCity cars that are up here, by the way, are also trying to figure out how to keep it up. The Corvettes are starting to slide back, I'm noticing. You know who also slid back? Drake Smith getting a turnaround.
That was awkward at the Lecombe chicane. Either not giving enough room or not being given enough room, and I'm not sure which way round it was from that angle, but the result was the Mustang spinning in the grass. And not what you want to see. Jason Allen has been sent down the order as well, I'm afraid. He was in a battle with someone on the fringes of the top 10, and he's clearly come off second best.
See what happened later on there with the 71, but what was I saying about the SimCity cars sliding back there? Definitely now sliding back. They just lost one of their members.
Yeah, well, that's not quite sliding back in the way that you meant, but it is true. It is true. They are struggling a little bit now. I don't know. I mean, the Corvettes at the front. There's the spin for Christopher. We've just seen through No Name Corner. Oh dear! One of those awkward moments where you end up stationary on the racing line.
Right now, here's a good question about things too. Who do you think would save the fuel aggressively here, like we've seen before? Better yet, will it work like before we've seen for the fixed side? That's a great point, so to speak, because we've seen the intervals grow a lot more between the teammates compared to what we did in the fixed side.
I think we're seeing a very different race to what we did in the fixed side of things, to be honest with you. Gregory Hofsson and Carl Modoff are the quickest two in the field. They're helping each other be as such. And now look at the amount of time they put into Aidan Young. 1.5 seconds is the gap to the Corvette, which is left on its own now, possibly to be swept up by this second group now, headed by Kevin Cantonio. I think Aidan Young has left those front two to fight between each other, and given the fact that Hofsson has been leading the entire time, I can't see how he can manage a shorter pit stop than Modoff, who I would imagine will be in the lead after the pit stops.
So we'll see what happens with the pit stop start. Expecting the full flurry like the last time to be about 15-14 minutes-ish or so to go. This race here once again, the lap estimate. For those curious, by the way, an extra 2 laps the distance. The extra time added to the board. So, overall, we've seen SimCity be around for a fair bit of time in a bunch of different leagues. What do you think about SimCity?
Yeah, they've been improving for sure since really rising to the fore of this sort of level of racing. We've broadcasted them plenty on RaceSpotTV and other leagues as well, like Ivra, which are longer races, requiring a few drivers. shown a real depth to their team. So yeah, they've been getting better in that sort of field of things. I think their next steps are certainly to move to the front of those kind of championships, if you like. And once they start challenging those teams who are at the top of those championships, like the sort of Impulse Racings of the world, the WSR Esports of the world, they can start to challenge those teams on a bit more of a regular occasion, then maybe a geodesic, yeah, maybe they can start to think of moving forward further. But now they're very much sort of established in this sort of part of the field and in this type of league and against this kind of competition. They're fairly well known now.
Antonio stays in the queue of drivers. They are losing a fair bit of ground, noticing to Aiden Yun here. So 2/10 per lap is the distance Modolf and Hovsen have been able to pull away. Cantonio seems to, at the very least, be podium speed at best right now.
I think there's a few drivers who are third place speed, and Cantonio is certainly one of them. Maybe even more so than the likes of Tabone and Dickinson, who are the other SimCity drivers in this group. I think that the real task here, though, is to catch Aiden Young, which Kevin Cantonio is quite a long way to achieving at the moment.
Yeah, right now, not even the halfway point of how things have gone so far. It's taken a very mellow focus, as touched upon. Your AM leader, by the way, is still Ryan Reeves in one of the Fords, despite contact. Things have stayed pretty calm there as well, with by 1 second for AM, too.
They've gained a couple of places since the start. Oh, and Cantonio! How's he done that?
Off the track, and Blanchimont ended up getting loose on entry, possibly, and he ends up smacking the tire barriers.
Oh, he's got himself a long way off the road for someone who was able to continue forward at quite a speed. So Cantonio drops to 8th behind Crisp. Emmett Linkvist got through on Sean Dickinson while that was all going on somehow. And all of a sudden, Kevin Cantonio is 8th. I can't understand how that's happened.
What did I say about if there's anybody who makes a mistake, drivers are right there to capitalize? That just happened, it looks like. Now the battle is on between Lindquist, one of the Zopek Precision cars, and the Bone.
No move here. But it wouldn't be a good idea to make one either. But that's a pretty big moment in the context of this race. I think Lindquist now is going to push to Bone as much as he can, try and close the gap a bit to Aiden Young, because these guys will still want to finish third, even though there is a 2-second gap to make up.
We haven't talked about Lindquist really at all this season, though. He's had a very quiet but very clean season at times. So far, he is 13th in the point standings, still looking for a top 5 of the season. Tonight might be the night.
It might well be. 8th place at Daytona was his best finishing position so far. It's 8th overall and in class that day. So he is well on his way possibly to a best result of the season so far, but very easily could fall below 8th position. It's still a very close race. Let's not lose sight of that, even though the two leaders are head and shoulders above the rest of the field, it seems. If you make a mistake, you will be losing a lot of places.
In the words of McLaughlin, very underrated is some of the words that can be described for Lindquist. And so far, he's been having a very quiet run, but a very solid one tonight, just past halfway. Now, what are the communications going to be like, though, for some of these teams? Because pretty soon they're about to have to peel down for pit road. Some of the air battles like Hedgecogs, they're also starting to heat up too in the battle of the purple cars.
Yeah, he just got past Chris Sewing there. who's been pushed down a position. 3rd place in the championship, Soyoung, by the way, so would like a good result here. After 6th place just 1 week ago. Back in 12th at the moment, but with possibility, as a lot of these guys do, to move through the field and make quite a lot of overtakes in the second half of this race, just because of how close everybody is.
These two up front, mind you, 2+ seconds. This is hitting exactly the Delta Sports standard once again. They have rear-wheel drivers in their stable. They have some of the best drivers in the history of the PRL. They seem very stable here with what we're seeing up front.
Yeah, they are. They do it time and time again. They look like they're on their way to another race win here. If they could possibly manage it. They've managed 3 out of 4 so far, with Karl Mordoff at the wheel of all of them. Wonder if there'll be a different race winner, but the same team on the top step this time round. We'll wait and see, but one thing I do know, in the current situation, Mordoff will be the championship leader at the end of the day, with the drop week applied after this round.
Still keep an eye on the train for 4th, as we're expecting drivers to pit pretty soon here. I was going to say, SimCity cars outside of the one slide back have started to really maintain with this pack since the shuffling. Sean Dickinson, in particular, is keeping up with the second pack.
Yeah, I mean, just about. I think clinging on, I think, is the word probably there. It's not convincing, but we'll be getting this little bits of slipstream, and that will help along. Now, does anybody pit this time round? Would have actually expected to see somebody from the top 10 try and go in here, but it doesn't seem that anybody is just for the moment. And for the most part, they are staying out onto the circuit. Now maybe Chris Soyoung is the first one who is in, and he is indeed from 12th place. He needed to do something, to be fair, stuck in traffic and stuck further down where he'd really want to be, so he's in the pit lane, really kicking off the cycle.
Window opens up here this time around. See how many people are able to get the fuel strategy just right to be able to keep up with the top 2. Lindquist right now staying in his line, not willing to go up a spot right now. Right there just goes in the clutch and coast.
Again, this will be the key before the pit stop. Everybody's trying to shorten their pit stop, go laps further than the others, and then they'll be unleashed in the second half of the race. But because of the way the fuel works, they might be able to stop quite late in this race, meaning they won't have very much time after the stops. It's going to be a fast and furious end to this race for sure, as everybody tries to get the positions they can from the situation they are given. And these two will be hoping the situation gives them a chance at 3rd. I don't think that's going to happen. Aidan Young on his own has been extending a gap on these two working together.
Yeah, I was about to say, Young's definitely not in fuel save mode with the way he's driving it.
Well, either he's not, or he is just less, fuel saving less than these guys, but certainly, yeah, he can't be saving too. I mean, it doesn't especially matter. If he's got 2.5 seconds nearly to those behind him, if he loses a second in the pit stop, I don't think he'll care.
I was about to say, he lost more than that when he did the same thing at Daytona. He was in the conversation at Daytona, then burned up the gas, and ended up having to take an extra couple seconds in the pit lane. And that ended up seeing him out of contention the rest of the way at Daytona.
Well, let's see if he's learnt his lesson, shall we say, from that. I mean, he's not running out of fuel yet, so clearly able to go relatively far, or at least as far as the others, as Fernando Yaquez now comes into the pit lane. So does Ethan Bass in the first of the Fords. So we're definitely in the window, but Young has clearly got enough fuel to continue on, at least to this stage, with everybody else.
Expecting a full flurry based on the time next time. And we've now Seeing a few people have to park it due to tech issues apparently. Dakota Knapp supporting that he had tech issues on the track. Outside of that, it's been near perfect sailing for these two.
Yeah. Makes you wonder how they're going to resolve the race victory between the two of them, to be honest. Don't know if Hobson's going to be given the win by Murdoch, whether they'll fight for it, whether it will be settled in the pit stops anyway. Can't tell you the answer to that, but it's been a show of dominance again from Delta Sport, who look like they're on their way to a victory as a team, certainly, if not maybe for both of their drivers. We'll see which one actually takes it in the end.
So, going to be a curious time to see how things go here. Battle for fourth still on screen. We'll keep an eye on this. Your thoughts on what we've seen throughout the day tonight?
Now look at Cantonio. Nothing like what he was before that mistake into Blanchimont. I don't know what's happened to him, or indeed his car, but he's just not the same after that mistake. Maybe it's been playing with his head, maybe it's playing something more physical with the car itself. But surely if he was struggling with the car, he would have been in by now. Oh, and speaking of issues with the car, oh, that's unbelievable. Marc-André Garon goes for a spin at Blanchimont.
Hard contact to the walls. Garon has now lost the back end.
Well, he'll be into the pit lane, you'd hope.
A bit of a scary moment there, to say the very least, and obviously that's going to hurt his chances the rest of the way as it's pit party time.
Yeah, very nearly everybody's in here. Carl Moloff isn't, neither is Brandon Tabone and Emmett Linkvist of those in the top five. So 3 of the top 5 stay out actually, but for the most part everybody is into the pit lane. That was very nearly a big save from Garon, by the way, who did well to flick the car the other way, but clearly, we didn't see the end of it, but clearly didn't quite do enough to keep it out the wall entirely.
So right now, Modoff, Tabone, Lindquist, Olivier, and a couple others able to stretch it. And some of the drivers starting to get a little bit squiggly. This is similar to what we talked about on the tires, starting to burn off a bit.
Yep. This is the replay. Look at the way he flicks the car to the right, left, but just can't hold the brakes and stop the rear wing from popping off. It's a bit annoying, but that's what happens when you have a great big rear wing like these GT3 cars do. So thankfully it was pit stop time and he goes into the box, hopefully not for too long of a pit stop.
So we'll keep an eye on some of the others. Dickinson's already came out of the pit lane in front of Chris Cantonio, a cycle behind them after a good recovery.
Yeah, so we'll see where everybody is in the context of the race as a whole in the minute, because Modoff's still out there, but we're getting a bit of an idea at the moment. Looks like Martin Crisp could gain a place also out of this, although a lot of people will gain a place as a result of Kevin Cantonio's issues in the last few moments. So we'll just see whether the overcut or the undercut is a better idea here as we start to mark these guys against Modoff, Tabone and Lindqvist, who will surely have to come in at the end of this lap.
So Tabone does come in. Modoff is in on the stretch of the fuel. Still only a few more laps to go in this one.
There we go. So nobody can go any further as expected, really. And with 10 minutes to go, Modoff makes his way very slowly down pit lane. Jason Allen also should be coming in here, but it'd be very interesting to see whether Gregory Hovson can get out ahead of him or not. His pit stop time was 10 seconds and 4 tenths for Hovson, and that's what we'll be looking for from Modoff as well.
So a lot to keep an eye on for when they roll through these boxes coming up here. We'll see if Modoff can cycle in front of his teammate to close it out or not.
Staying down on the floor, of course. No jacks required for just the fueling. Seconds tick by. Molotov 9.6. He gains 8 tenths, but that shouldn't be enough for him to get away from Hovsen. It might only be enough to see him get ahead.
So, right now, the cycle sees Molotov in front. He has taken the net lead.
Yeah, it's not by much, though. As long as Hovsen's in the slipstream, he'll be very pleased with that, and he is indeed. So, it's between the two teammates for the win. Further behind, Aidan Young had a long stop there, as you can see, compared to some of the others, especially Lindqvist, who has gained. Aidan Young has got challenges for third place.
So they continue to cycle around for the time being, but now it's the question, can Gregory Hovsen take the lead back from his teammate? This is almost similar to what we've seen a couple times this season with Carl.
Yeah, so I'm still unsure how they're going to resolve it, to be honest. Is it going to be in an all-out battle between the two of them, or are we going to see sort of the teammates playing a game there? I'm not entirely sure.
Aidan Young, by the way, he's still held on to third. Good job to him.
Yeah, but don't forget about the gap that he had before the pit stops. I don't think he'll be pleased with this pit stop cycle because he's allowed others into the slipstream. Lindqvist, the only one who was able to stay there. Brandon Tabone has already lost the draft.
So Lindqvist, do you think he can make this pass for the podium, and how does he do it?
Well, that's going to be a more difficult ask, of course, but given they're in the same car, the strengths and weaknesses argument doesn't really come into this at all. Again, I think it's all going to be at Lecombe. We see most of the moves there. I doubt that will change, but it's a bit of a case again whether Lindqvist will go for it immediately or wait a little bit. Same goes for the two leaders as well, in first and second.
Stay in lockstep for the time being, though, with 7 minutes underneath on the clock. This could be where it comes down to being smart, right? Can this be played just right? We'll see.
Well, he's got the run here, Lindqvist. This depends on whether he'll play the game and wait, or whether he believes that he needs to take the chances that he gets. I think it's the second one as he goes down the inside.
Inside, the run for Young gets the switch back. Switches back to Lindqvist. Lindqvist trying to clear. Can't yet as Young gets the power back.
He can't slide in front of the yellow and black Corvette as they go side by side in contact. Lindqvist goes around. Oh, that's such a shame to see that battle end in that way.
And that's going to end up costing him all the way outside the top 8. A big mistake with the 40.
And Bass will get through as well. Lindqvist's tyres will be very warm, and so Bass will try and find his way through too. But what a shame that is. What a shame. Thought that we were going to see a good battle for third there between those two, but come to an end really before it started.
Martin Crisp stays inside the top 5 meanwhile. One of his best runs all season.
It's a good performance from him. See if he can hang on to a top 5 at the expense of his teammate, Sean Dickinson. But yeah, a number of good drives here to get up inside the top 10 especially. And you can see a lot of them in that camera shot there. Still plenty of drivers just outside the top 10 looking to make their way in, like Rob Clark, who we've not seen very much of today. Don't forget, he's second in the championship.
So we'll see how this now goes in this line. Dominic Olivier also having one of his best runs. Great run for Hedgecox to come from where he's been all the way up to the top 7 here as well.
There they are, or just in behind. There's Hedgecox in the field, 19th in the current standings. Hasn't been in the top 5 yet this season, and probably a stretch to expect that from him today as well. But he's there or thereabouts as we see the teammates make their way up the hill now towards Lecombe. Same for Modolf and Hovsen, who stay single file there, by the way. Crisp and Dickinson will do the same.
It's an interesting race now that comes down to the final stretch. Lights are on the cars. Can anybody make a move to be able to close things up here?
I think the only battles that we're going to see really, probably not between these two. I think maybe the leaders, if they're not going to sort things out between themselves in the team. I think other than that, it will be from Hedgecock's backwards, really. Olivier, Lindqvist, Bass, Clark and Soyoung are all involved in that 6-car group, and that'll be about it.
So, Dominic Olivier, he's shown great speed over the years. He's had a great run here tonight, his best run all season.
That's good to see. In terms of manufacturers as well, by the way, the only Ferrari in the field too, well, not in the field, sorry, in the top 10 in the field, I should say. So puts into context further for Dominic Olivier, the drive that he's done today.
So, Lindqvist has done a good job though on the recovery after the incident. Seems to still have speed in it to be able to keep up here in these battles as we close up to the final couple laps.
Yeah, I'm impressed with that because I thought Lindqvist was under immediate pressure from Bass, and he was, but held off that, and he's immediately back up to speed again. That's very impressive to achieve, as by the way they go over the line for 2 more laps here.
So, a couple more laps to go. Olivier starting to have some bobbles. This is starting to actually build up a bit of a queue behind them as well.
Hedgecock is losing a lot of time compared to the top 6. So Olivier will want to get through, but there's always a hesitancy on the penultimate lap, knowing that if you make an overtake this lap, you will give your rival a chance to do it, as well as there's drama between the teammates.
Gregory Hobson having a moment, going high side, and Karl Modolf has to slow down and nearly stop there.
Well, it'll be a slowdown penalty for sure. Saw him off the road. Don't know how that started. We'll get a replay of that and see what happened between the two leaders.
That's a wild moment for Gregory, to say the least, with that mistake. Karl, for the first time, might not get a win in a race he starts if this holds. The air battles seem to be a bit more calmer compared to what we just seen.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, teammates, this is how they're supposed to race with one another. Often they don't at all, but there you go. We'll find out exactly what happened between the front two. But that says to me, by the way, we are going to get a fight for the win on the last lap. And I think Hovsen is going to have one more lap to defend it from Modolf, and it certainly will be a lap of defending for him.
So we'll see how this now goes. All this is now going towards the final lap coming up here. A change for the lead. Hobson has let Modolf have it back.
Well, was that tactics or was that courteous after the contact that they had before that, before the sort of off-track moment, if you like, for Modolf? It might have just been Hobson saying, you know, have the place back. I forced you off the road earlier. We just don't know.
So all this is staying in a line for the time, but will we see them swap around on the final time around again? Hobson last time pressurized a mistake from Modolf. Can Modolf hold on here? Here comes the defense from Modolf. Outside, Hobson trying to take the long distance. Swaps back to his inside. Modolf gets back clear. No one charged back for the outside for the 115. What a send for the outside, side by side for the win through Riviage.
This is incredible between the two teammates. Not a bit of contact, just fair, respectful racing again. Down the inside again for Hobson into no name. Oh my word. Modov has to take to the tarmac. They're still side by side.
Still side by side. Through to sector 2. Contact. Modov makes it stick. They go off to lift edges. Modov still has the preferred line for the start of the complex. Bit more rubbing and scraping. Still not clear.
They've been side by side nearly a lap. And finally Modov gets it done. It's not over certainly, because the gap is abnormally small between them out of Stavolo. And that means that into the bus stop chicane, Gregory Hobson's going to have a chance to take his first win of the season.
Oh my goodness is all you can really say. Side by side attempt again. Hobson tries to build up one more charge. Modov looks to play defense. Hobson cuts to the left. Modov stays right for the bus stop. One more chance. Hobson tries to pinch. Modov gets some contact from his teammate. Pushed wide. They rub doors. They door each other. At the stripe, it was Hobson.
Wow. An unbelievable battle between the Delta Sport teammates who crash into each other after the line. But it's Gregory Hobson by 13 thousandths of a second who wins the race with a good move at the bus stop. Actually held his ground well on the inside there in the final turn and took a dramatic win. What a final lap.
What a wild final lap, absolutely. Just unbelievable. I don't know what else to say as the M win ends up going to Ryan Reeves from 14th spot. What a finish, Ewan.
Yeah, what a finish. Fantastic. I mean, that race was lacking in overtakes for probably 38 minutes, to be honest with you. But the last lap was extraordinary between Hobson and Modov. I know that they probably stayed side by side and more respectful for longer because they were teammates. Well, they are teammates still. Wonder how they'll be feeling with each other after this one, but an unbelievable battle. Settled in the favour of Gregory Hobson, who takes his first win of the season.
Hobson, Modov, Yun, The Bone, Crisp, Dickinson, Lindquist, Hedgecox, Bass, and Clark, your top 10 here tonight. So on, Dominic Olivier, Wagner, Reeves, Spears, Jennings, Janess, Stewart, Anderson, and Brown, your top 20. Finishing off at 21st, J.R. Williams, Allen, Lacio, Hodgson, Holland, Simpson, Akez, Smith, Sherripp, and Thomas Rep in 30th. 31st went to Jeff Carollo, David Holland, and Peter Muller in 33rd. Garon, Brock, Stouffer, 36th. Cantonio finishes 5 laps down in 37th with a DNF. Campbell, Knapp, Beaver, your top 30, 40. Zuke, Robertson, amongst your final finishers here tonight. But how about that finish? Gregory Hobson comes away with the win by 12 1,000ths of a second, Gregory. How about that?
Yeah, pretty good, huh? It was good fun. I'm sure the team boss wasn't the most pleased with us fighting, but hey, with the whole strategy of leading the whole thing and then burning a bit more fuel, Carl was able to jump me in the pits, but yeah, then I made a mistake going into Lake Home, shoved him a bit wide, so did the right thing, let him by for one more lap to fight, and then I think we did almost the whole lap side by side, so yeah, pretty cool.
A pretty cool run to say the very least now, but overall, how would you describe that setup in the first place?
Scary, dangerous. Yeah, Lambo, we were struggling quite a fair bit to try and get that top speed. You could see Aiden and the other Chevys. You can see Chevy P3 through 8. So yeah, good BOP, I'd say. Yeah, they had a lot of top speed on us, so they were able to hang out with us for a fair bit of the race. But then once we broke away, we were able to use our pace and get ahead of them. But yeah, no, credit to Carl. It was good fun. We practice like that. So yeah, come race time, we know we can trust each other and lean on each other a little.
Overall, though, how would you describe the swing of emotions compared to what happened last week?
Yeah, last week, bit of a mess with qualifying on pole, and then my game, my sim, right when I was waiting for the qualifying session to roll over to race, it completely froze and I dropped connection. So had a pretty big comeback drive last week, and then now today happy to get on pole and then actually win the thing. So yeah, happy to have my first PRL win.
Well, congratulations once again on the run. Anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, of course. Delta Sport, all the guys working pretty hard, trying to figure it all out. Yeah, Carl for being an awesome teammate. We worked together, communicated the whole time, and yeah, we were respectful. So yeah, big shout out to Delta Sport, as I said. Carl, of course, and yeah, thanks guys.
Congratulations on the run, Gregory. Gregory Hobson comes away with the win tonight. Carl Modoff in second. He's with Ewan.
Welcome in, Carl. Good to have you with us. I mean, an extraordinary battle for us to watch, I've got to say, on that final lap. We thoroughly enjoyed it, but what was it like from your perspective?
Thanks, guys. Yeah, that was fun. That was great racing at the end there. I think we were stuck together for half the lap, just starting to stress about incidents points. But yeah, it was a great way to finish the race. We worked together the whole race, and then at the end, just kind of all gloves off, go for it. And I think we gave each other enough room, and we still got the 1-2 done. But we were able to have a lot of fun there on the last lap or two. So that was a cool, good race.
Absolutely. I mean, Hobson will, of course, have that drop week applied now after this round, and yourself, you will have that DNS at Daytona written off now too. That will put you to I can't do the maths on where that will put you exactly. I apologise for that, but you're going to be quite close to each other, and some others as well. How are you feeling about the rest of the season now with regards to the points?
Yeah, feeling good. It'd be nice to drop my DNS so I could see kind of where I stack up, and yeah, it's probably gonna go down to the wire. Me and Greg been teammates running together now for probably at least a year, and over the time we're just always the same speed pretty much. So I think it's gonna go down to the wire. Probably be neck and neck throughout the rest of the season, and I'm looking forward to it. So congrats to Greg on the win today, but I'm coming for you next week, buddy.
If we get some more battles like that, we're looking forward to it too. Carl, congratulations on second, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks very much, Carl Modoff. Second place in Pro at Spa tonight.
Stellar run for Carl, but a stellar run as well for Aiden Yun. Aiden, a top 3 run. How would you describe the race?
Very fun, but I mean, also my car was very loose, so I mean I was a bit squirrely at some times. It's hard to beat two teammates who work together, so I was just trying my best to see if I could stay with them. So at the end there, when they started fighting, I was just trying to push as hard as I could. I ended up cooking my tires. They were literally baking on the ground beneath me, so I was just sliding everywhere, just manhandling the car, but trying to get to them in time. But it was just, unfortunately, it was a bit too late.
Just a touch bit there, yes, but how would you describe the feel of your car for tonight to have the pace it did?
It was awesome. The guys at Race Forward made a rocket of a setup for this car, made in collaboration along with P1 Docs. So I gotta thank P1 Docs and Fierce Forward both, because I probably wouldn't have had the pace that I did today without them. And then also, I mean, doing the Spa-24 on the weekend, that kind of helped too, because I already had about probably 300, 400 laps. So that was fun. So I was already looking forward to it. Qualifying was a bit unexpected, but I mean, I was happy with it, and then I just tried to do what I could, and I ended up getting third. So yeah, I'm pretty happy.
Overall, anyone want to give a shout out to tonight?
Yes, I'd like to give a shout out to Jack Hatchcox, my teammate, helping me get the lap I did in quali. I tried my best to give him the tow, but unfortunately he was a little too late in quali. Then Fiercely Forward for watching tonight and cheering me on, giving me the support to get this result. P1 Docs, all our setup makers in the team, our team's head coach, and anybody else who was watching and cheering me on, and then my dad for being in here to spot for me.
Well, congratulations, the run tonight, Aiden.
Thank you.
Aiden Young coming away with the podium run. Your AM winner tonight was Ryan Reeves. He's with you. And
yeah, welcome in, Ryan. Good to have you with us as well. Didn't see a lot of the AM race here tonight, unfortunately, but what was it like from yourself's point of view? How stressful was it, and what was the battle like for the win?
Oh, it was good, man. Kudos to Josh Spears, keeping me honest the whole race. Did a really nice job keeping the pressure on the whole time, and it got as close to, I think, a 6/10 at one point, and it was really tight. So it was a good race to Josh.
Yes, your first win of the season, of course. What has this sort of journey been like with the Ford Mustang this season? It's a new car. It's not a car that's actually very well enjoyed in the Pro class, but you've been able to take it to an AM victory now. What is the car like to drive round here? What's it been like to learn with this season?
Yeah, I'm not used to front engines. I'm used to actually driving prototypes and open wheels, so this has been a pretty big adjustment all season to the GT3 and obviously the Mustang, learning the front engine, but it's been a good learning curve. It's obviously pretty strong at Spa, lots of fast sweeping corners, and it's got a pretty strong top speed when you trim it out.
Well, it certainly took you to victory today. Congratulations on that run, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks very much. Ryan Reeves there, the AM winner from the Sprint Series tonight.
well, once again, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to speak with us during post-race coverage here on Race Spot. Nürburgring will be the next track on the docket, July the 30th. Coverage starts 8:30 p.m. with the Fixed Series. The Sprint Series will follow at about 9:30 p.m. Catch both of those races once again here on Race Spot. On that note, though, it's time to say goodbye from Spa. I'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's coverage here on Race Spot. For Ewan O'Leary, for our producer Ramiro Cisneros, I'm Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your evening. You've been watching the PRL here on Race Spot.